What's going on, everyone? I'm back. It's Thursday morning, and you know what time it is. I've got my Week 8 NFL Pick'em games for you, outright and versus the spread, along with my locks of the week. Hopefully, we'll be able to do a little bit better than last week. So let's get right into it. Now, our first game of the week, we've got the Dolphins at the Ravens in Baltimore Thursday night. So, what can we expect? Well, with the Dolphins, obviously the big news was the Jay Cutler rib injury. But even with that, they were able to overcome their divisional deficit versus the Jets and get a comeback victory to go to 4-2 for the season. And on the flip side, the Ravens, they lost their matchup with the Vikings. Kind of like I said, I thought it was a very bad mismatch in terms of a bad, stagnant Ravens offense versus that Vikings defense. So they're sitting at 3-4. Now they've got a home game versus the Dolphins. And similar to last week, I think this is just a bad matchup, offense versus defense, but this time in favor for the Ravens. So Matt Moore is going to be quarterbacking the Dolphins. And, he does have chemistry with the guys there. He does know the system. So I don't think it'll be that big of a fall from production. But in terms of struggles versus the defense, I think those will continue to exist because the Ravens do have a stout defense. That's what they've had going for them their entire season. And the Dolphins can be lackluster on offense at times. Now, I could see this honestly being a low-scoring affair. The Dolphins have some talent on the defensive side as well. And as I mentioned before, the Ravens are just a mess offensively. So when it's all said and done, I expect this to be about a 17-14, 20-17 game, something like that. I will go ahead. I'll pick the Ravens to win outright. I think it'll be a close game. As far as the spread goes, the Ravens are at -3.5 at home. And since I do think this will be a low-scoring game, those games usually probably 3 points or less kind of affairs, especially with the Ravens offense involved. So for that reason, I'm actually going to go ahead, pick the Dolphins against the spread. Moving on, we have got the Vikings at the Cleveland Browns, and talk about two teams on the opposite end of the NFL spectrum. Vikings are at 5-2, winning their division, while the Browns are at 0-7, still winless, and still wondering when will that first win come. And unfortunately for them, I don't think it's going to come this week or anytime soon. The Browns were in a close battle with the Titans, but as usual, they weren't able to pull it out. And on the flip side, the Vikings got a comfortable win versus the Ravens, as I mentioned. The Vikings at 5-2, and they've done it behind a really good defense and a balanced offense. Keenum, he's built enough of rapport with those guys on offense. Diggs, Thielen, looking like Diggs might play, so that'll be even more of a boost. The running game, Murray and McKinnon have played well since Dalvin Cook got injured. And, on the flip side, I think this is just a bad matchup for the Browns. The quarterback situation with them, who's going to start, who won't start, it's going to be Kaiser, but there's some divide in that locker room right now. He's still a rookie, and this is a bad matchup defensively for him. So all signs point to the Vikings winning outright, and I feel really comfortable with that. As far as the spread goes, the Browns are at +9.5, and honestly, even if it's on the road, I still think the Vikings can score more than 9.5. I see them winning by double digits, and this isn't the type of defense that's going to allow garbage time points. So I really do think Vikings not only win outright, but also cover the spread. Next, we've got the Falcons at the New York Jets, and talk about two teams that are both in surprising situations right now, almost midway through the season. Falcons at 3-3, Jets at 3-4. With the Falcons, we know how they started off. Started off really well, and since then, 3 straight losses. While the Jets, they blew that lead versus the Dolphins. They could very well be at 4-3, if not better. If you all remember, they also had the reverse touchdown versus the Patriots. Who knows how that would have turned out. But nonetheless, as far as wins, both teams at 3 wins right now. The game's in New York, but honestly, I still think the Falcons have the edge. I know offensively they've left a lot to be desired. We saw it last week versus the Patriots. I certainly thought they would be able to put up more points, but you know, I have to give the Patriots defense more credit than I did. They've been getting better, but on the other side of the spectrum, this Jets defense, it can be exposed for a fact, and they surely don't have enough firepower to hang with the Falcons. We finally saw Julio get going last week, which was nice. I think he is out of his slump, and I think he will get a lot more targets. I think this is the perfect bounce back game for the Falcons. I like them outright. Their defense, you know, it's more disciplined. It's got Dan Quinn leading that defense. They've got the talent defensively. Also offensively, you know, as well as McCown has played for the Jets, you know, the Falcons, they've been in a slump, but they have no question about it. More talent offensively with the running backs, with Ryan, with Julio. So I give the Falcons the edge all across the board. I have them winning this game outright. As far as the spread goes, I think the spread is honestly too low. The Jets are at plus 4.5. I'm going to go ahead. I think the Falcons break through in this game. I finally think they get back to their winning ways, and I think they do so in a dominating fashion, and they win this game. I wouldn't be surprised if it's by close to double digits, so I'll take the Falcons with the spread. Continuing on, we have got an AFC clash. Raiders at the Bills in Buffalo, and both teams coming off impressive wins. Raiders had an exciting game versus the Chiefs, probably the best game of the week from week 7. They got a 1-point victory versus the Chiefs, and the Bills, they beat the Bucks and improved to 4-2. So surprisingly, they are sitting right at top of their division alongside Tom Brady and the Patriots. So they've been a pleasant surprise for this season. I don't know how much longer it'll last. We've seen that the defense can at times give up points, and that offense can be stagnant. The best playmaker they have, without a doubt, is Shady McCoy. Tyrod Taylor, I'm still not sold on him long term, but to me, this game comes down to the fact that the Raiders, to me, just have a more balanced offense. You know, they might be without Lynch, but I think that can serve them better in the long term, actually. I think the passing game is their bread and butter. They have a good offensive line, so, you know, Derek Carr will have time. It'll be an interesting matchup in the trenches. Oakland O-line versus Buffalo front 7. So that'll be something to keep an eye out on. But I think the Raiders right now, if I had to put money on this game, I think it'll come down to offensive abilities. And I just trust the Raiders more right now. They've got more playmakers. I give them the edge in quarterback and receivers. And running game goes to Buffalo. But, you know, if the Bills go down a lot, they're going to have to abandon that a little bit. Defensively, the Bills are better, but, you know, we saw that they can give up points last week. We saw it with the Bucks, so I wouldn't necessarily call the Bills a shutdown defense. They're a good defense, but they can give up yardage. So to me, I could see this game being high scoring, and I personally like the Raiders to win this game on the road. As far as the spread is concerned, Bills are at minus 2.5. So as you can see, the spread is pretty close to being neutral. If it was in Oakland, Oakland probably would be favored. And for that reason, I like the Raiders against the spread as well. I like them to win, so only makes sense to pick them as far as the spread's concerned too. Shifting gear to an NFC clash, we've got the Bears at the Saints. Now, both teams coming off of nice wins. Bears, unfortunately, versus the Panthers, in my case. And then the Saints won their clash versus the Packers without Aaron Rodgers. Now, looking at the Bears, they're sitting at 3-4, and I think a lot of people might give them a little bit more credit than they deserve, especially after that Panthers win. Now, let me tell you why. Obviously, their defense underrated, but has been playing well. That was the reason why they won last week's game. 2 defensive touchdowns. They made 2 big plays, fumble recovery for 6 and a pick 6. But if you look at their offense, Trubisky had 4 completions. And honestly, the Bears offense, while they didn't need to do a lot, they still couldn't do a lot, if that makes any sense. Same thing happened with them versus the Ravens the week before that. And I think this is the kind of offense that does not have the capability to put up more than 17 points. The only way that this Bears team is going to put up more than 20 points is if they get help defensively via a touchdown, whether it be a pick six, fumble recovery, something like that. And they've excelled versus, and excelled isn't even the best word, they've gotten their last couple wins versus stagnant offenses in Joe Flacco's Ravens and Cam Newton and the Panthers. And that's certainly not the case with the Saints here in New Orleans. Drew Brees is a top 5 quarterback. He's a Hall of Famer. He is elite, and that Saints offense is no joke. While the Bears defense, maybe they will be able to slow down the Saints for a little bit, they're going to get worn out, and they're going to surrender a lot of points. Make no mistakes about it, this will be a blowout. The Saints are going to handle the Bears. That's my prediction for this game. Defensively, they've played a lot better to the Saints, that is, and at home with that crowd behind them, I think they're going to give fits to Trubisky. He's still a rookie. He struggled the last couple games putting up yardage, and I think the Saints defense also has a big game. I look for the Saints to win this game big and to really kind of expose the Bears' offensive woes. So with that being said, as far as the spread is concerned, Saints are at -8.5. I think it's going to be more. I think this is going to be a double-digit win for the Saints. So for that reason, I like the Saints to cover the spread. Continuing on, we have got the Colts at the Cincinnati Bengals. Both teams sitting with 2 wins. Colts at 2-5, Bengals 2-4. And with the Colts, we saw them get manhandled by the Jaguars last week, and then the Bengals kept it close with the Steelers for the first part of that game, and then the Steelers distanced themselves and won pretty comfortably. Now, this game being in Cincinnati, I think that gives an edge to the Bengals. They'll have the home crowd behind them. And honestly, both these teams, they're not that good of football teams. I do think the Bengals are better. You know, Brissett is quarterbacking the Colts, and while he has looked serviceable at times, it has been against very weak defenses. I think the Bengals are a better defense than people give them credit for. And without Andrew Luck, that Colts team just not the same. You know, he had a setback, so I don't know how long it'll be until he hits the field, or if at all he hits the field this year. To me, I think, you know, both teams have trouble offensively. Those offensive lines have issues. With the Bengals, at least, though, we have seen some kind of upwards progression after they changed their offensive coordinator. I give the edge quarterback-wise to the Bengals, Andy Dalton, running back-wise to the Bengals, and then receiver-wise also to the Bengals. They've got A.J. Green, and I know the Colts have T.Y., but honestly, he hasn't done much this year, and it's been very sporadic. I'll give the edge offensively to the Bengals, defensively also to the Bengals, and I think this week, this probably is one of the more straightforward picks. I feel pretty good about players on the Bengals this week, fantasy-wise. Defensive-wise, I think the Bengals will also have a good showing versus the Colts. So for that reason, I like the Bengals. I like the Bengals to win outright. As far as the spread is concerned, however, Bengals are at -10.5. That's a little too high for me. Since both teams are kind of, you know, below par, I could see this game being a little bit closer than people expect. So for that reason, I will give the Colts the edge when it comes to the spread and ride with them in that fashion. Next, we've got one of the more exciting games, in my opinion, for this week. Chargers at the Patriots. Chargers at 3-4, Patriots 5-2. And obviously, we know how the Chargers started, 0-4, but they've won 3 straight. And honestly, they could have very well be sitting at 5-2 right now themselves. They had very close losses the first 2 weeks, lost at the last second, if you guys remember. And I think finally their offense is coming alive and they're starting to click. They're starting to win those close games. They definitely have the ability to put up points. You know, Phil Rivers, he's got all the weapons around him. Melvin Gordon, Keenan Allen, Williams. So they have a plethora of weapons. Defensively, you know, they're no scrubs either. Uh, as far as the Patriots are concerned, obviously they are the better offense. You know, they have more playmakers in the passing game, in my opinion. They've got Gronk, they've got Cooks, Hogan, Amendola, Deion Lewis is coming on strong. So offensively, they do get the edge here. Defensively, I will say this: the Patriots have been playing a lot better the last couple weeks, so I don't think they're in as much trouble as people would say they are defensively. I think things are starting to click for the Patriots, and they're starting to steamroll ahead. As far as this game is concerned, picking outright, I do like the Patriots outright. The Chargers struggle defending those in between the numbers, kind of middle of the field passes, and that's where Gronk feasts. I think he can have a big game here. So I like the Patriots to win outright. I think this will be a high-scoring game. As far as the spread is concerned, Patriots are at -7.5. And while I do think they win this game, I'm going to go ahead, pick the Chargers to cover the spread. I think they can put up a good amount of points, and that this will be a close game that's probably won by a touchdown or less by the Patriots. Next, shifting gears to an NFC clash, we've got the 49ers at the Eagles. 49ers still winless, 0-7, unfortunately, while the Eagles have the best record in the NFL at 6-1. And honestly, this is a mismatch all around, let's be honest. One of the easier picks for this week. Eagles at home in Philly. Offensively, they have got the edge all around. You know, Carson Wentz has played like an MVP. If the season ended right now, I think he would honestly be the MVP choice. Offensively, also, passing game has excelled in large part because of Wentz. They are a pass-first team. The 49ers give up a lot of yards, whether it be on the ground, through the air. If need be, the Eagles can also, you know, churn out those rushing yards. And Wentz has actually been a surprising performer in that category. He's had some nice rushes. They've got Blunt, they've got Smallwood. Not big flashy names, but those guys can deliver, especially in the red zone. So offensively, Eagles have the edge. Defensively, also, you got to give them the edge. They're more experienced. They have more chemistry than the young 49ers defense. So all signs and all logic goes to the Eagles winning this game outright. As far as the spread is concerned, Eagles, you know, biggest spread right here at -12.5. And honestly, I think it's warranted. As much as these big spreads scare me to go with them, I think the Eagles cover in Philly. The only way that the 49ers get close is garbage time points, and I don't think that'll happen. I think the Eagles are more disciplined than that, and I think they will be able to cruise to a comfortable win. So I take them with the spread as well to cover. Next, we've got a divisional clash, Panthers at the Bucks, and both teams coming off disappointing losses. Panthers 4-3, Bucks 2-4. Panthers fell to the Bears after one of the most embarrassing showings of last week, where the Panthers only put up 3 points, no offensive touchdowns. And while their defense did play well, their offense kept shooting themselves in the foot. Turnovers aplenty. Cam couldn't make the right decisions. He kept overthrowing his receivers, and he kept getting sacked. Wasn't making good decisions overall. Didn't really get the running game going either. That's been a problem for the Panthers all season long. And even though they're 4-3 and the Bucks are at 2-4, I think the record is misrepresented for the Panthers. They're not as good as their record shows, and I think the gap between these two teams isn't as wide as their record would indicate. You know, offensively, this game matters in terms of what Cam Newton shows up. If a good Cam Newton shows up, then the Panthers should win this game. But to me, you know, he has been all over the place. I just don't have enough confidence in saying a reliable Cam Newton will show up. You know, as long as he plays average football, this offense can put up points, and defensively, they can keep them in the game. But again, I just don't have that faith and trust in Cam Newton. With the Bucks, Jameis Winston, in my opinion, he's been playing better than Cam Newton. Offensively, Mike Evans better than anyone that the Panthers have in the receiving game. Deshaun Jackson can provide that Hail Mary kind of guy and get behind the defense, which I think that defense can be exposed to the Panthers, especially on those long passing plays. So offensively, to some degree, I give this game and this matchup a wash. If a bad Cam Newton shows up, Bucks get the edge. Offensively, they probably also get the win. Defensively, both teams, you know, they're susceptible to giving up points. Panthers better defensively though, however, but still, to me, this game comes down to offensive execution and mostly which Cam Newton shows up. Since to me that is a big question mark, I have to go with the Bucks winning this game at home. As far as the spread is concerned, -2.5. I'll go ahead and say that the Bucks can cover the spread. They'll win by at least a field goal, in my opinion. So go ahead, pick the Bucks on the spread as well. Moving on, we have what could potentially be a really interesting game in the Texans versus the Seahawks in Seattle. However, the Texans have put up some points the last couple of games. Impressively, Deshaun Watson has thrown for several touchdowns, and he's kept that pace up. However, I do think that this is where that train comes to a stop. I think the Texans' offense is going to come crashing down in a big way. You know, that Seattle defense just does not make a lot of mistakes. They do not give up a lot of big plays, do not give up garbage time points. This game is in Seattle, so for that reason, Seattle also gets an edge in my opinion. Also offensively, they've started to put things together. The Seahawks, that is, they're sitting at 4-2. Texans at 3-3. And the only way, in my opinion, the Texans have an edge is offensively if they can have a huge game from Deshaun Watson and his rushing ability. But I think the Seattle Seahawks are well prepared for that. They go up versus Russell Wilson in practice, who has that ability, so they're well trained in that department. Defensively, the Texans are going to be without J.J. Watt, without Merciless, so those are two big losses, and I give the edge defensively again to the Seahawks. So all around, I like the Seahawks. I think it could be closer than people think, but when it's all said and done, Seahawks pull away and they win this game. I have them winning outright, and as far as the spread is concerned, they're at -5.5. I'll go ahead and I'll pick them to cover the spread again because I think they can, in the long run, wear out that Texans offense, make them commit a lot of turnovers, as they'll probably be trailing in the game and trying to force things. So I like the Seahawks to cover the spread. Now going back to another divisional clash, we have got the Cowboys at the Redskins, and this again probably going to be one of the more interesting games of the day. We've got Cowboys at 3-3, Redskins at 3-3. This is going to have huge indications for that division and probably a wild card spot, because you know, whoever wins this game gets above 500 and kind of has that momentum, whereas the loser below 500 has to make up more ground. This game is in Washington. Now, as far as the teams are concerned, I think the Cowboys have more talent. You know, offensively, Dak has played great. They've got more talent in terms of receivers, in terms of running backs, for sure with Zeke in there. He's going to be playing this game, so offensively, I give the Cowboys the edge. They have a great offensive line. Dak is capable of running it. In these divisional games, he usually shines, and I expect that to be the case. The Redskins, Cousins has played well recently, but I'm still not sold on that offense. You know, Jordan Reed had a nice game last week, but Terrell Pryor is MIA, still their big free agent acquisition. And while I do think that Cowboys defense will give up a lot of points, and Cousins will have a pretty good game, when it's all said and done, I think the Cowboys have more firepower on offense, and defensively, they will bend, but they won't break. I like the Cowboys on the road to win this game. For me, it just comes down to what they can do offensively, and the fact that I have more faith in Dak than I do Kirk Cousins right now. So give me the Cowboys to win this game outright. as far as the spread is concerned, Redskins are at plus 2.5. You know, if I was to go ahead and go with them, I'd like to see a bigger spread. So for that reason, I think the Cowboys can cover. They can at least win by 3 points. If anything, 3 points right around there, game-winning field goal situation maybe. So I like the Cowboys as far as the spread is concerned. Now, transitioning to Sunday night, we have got the Steelers at the Lions in Detroit. Steelers coming off a nice win, divisional win, versus the Bengals sitting at 5-2, and the Lions at 3-3 at home. Now, with the Steelers this week, the big news was Martavis Bryant. He wants to get traded. Is he going to get traded? Back and forth, blah, blah, blah. Well, he's not going to get traded, but what will happen is he's going to be benched for this game. So, no Martavis Bryant. And the big question is, what Steelers offense will show up? Will it be an offense that has its game plan together and Big Ben balls out on the road? That's always a big question. As far as offensive weapons are concerned, Le'Veon Bell has played extremely well the last couple of weeks, and I think that's what the Steelers should lean on. Lean on the running game when Big Ben struggles on the road at times, and with Le'Veon Bell, with Antonio Brown, I think the Steelers can go up against any offense. Now, the Lions are no scrubs themselves offensively either. They will be without Golden Tate. That is unfortunate, but they will have Matthew Stafford who can air it out and air it out with the best of them. So I do see this game being a high-scoring game. Defensively, I think both teams are good defensively, at least average, and I think that is a wash. To me, this game just comes down to who will make less mistakes and who can excel more in the rushing game. To me, that is the Steelers. I think they know that Big Ben can struggle on the road, so they'll lean on the running game, and Stafford does turn the ball over. So to me, I give the edge barely to the Steelers. I'll go ahead, pick them on the road. To me, it's a close game. As far as the spread is concerned, Lions are at plus 3.5 at home. I do think the Steelers will be able to cover that. So for that reason, I'll take the Steelers to win on the road by at least 4 points. And finally, we have got Broncos versus Chiefs, another divisional game Monday night. Broncos sitting at 3-3, Chiefs sitting at 5-2, 2 straight losses on their end. And now they have a home game versus the Broncos, divisional opponent. I have to give the Chiefs the edge here. Offensively speaking, they're the better team, no question about it. Alex Smith, better quarterback. They have the better running game. They have, right now, a more explosive passing game as well. Defensively, the Broncos have to get the edge, but as we've seen recently, they've struggled and, don't look as strong as they did before. They are now in the process of kind of figuring things out together because we're kind of seeing that defense, while it is good, cannot carry them maybe as far as we initially thought. So for that reason, I got to give the Chiefs the edge here. I do think it'll be a close game. These divisional games usually are. And maybe the Broncos kind of get a kick in the butt because of that. And they play, up to their standards, or if not higher than that. So while I do like the Chiefs to win this game outright, the spread is minus 7.5 for the Chiefs. So I do think this can be a closer game. We've got a good defense involved. So go ahead. I'm going to pick the Broncos to cover the spread. I could see this game being, a 3, 4, 5 point victory for the Chiefs when it's all said and done. So with that, we come to the conclusion of the Pick'em games. Now, as far as my locks of the week, I have a couple. First of all, 49ers at the Eagles. I think this game is as straightforward as you need it to be. Eagles 6-1, 49ers winless. Eagles have looked like the best team in the NFL. Wentz has looked like an MVP. I take the Eagles as one of my locks of the week. Then Bears at Saints. I think this is a very bad matchup offensively for the Bears. Don't think they'll be able to keep up with the Saints in New Orleans. I like the Saints to win this game. I like the Saints defense to have a big game as well. Next, Vikings at the Browns. Same situation here. I think this is a bad matchup for the Browns. They're winless. The Vikings have a stellar defense. Give me the Vikings even on the road to win this game. And finally, Falcons at the Jets. Feel a little bit less comfortable around, behind this one, but if I had to add another game, it would be this one. Give me the Falcons to get back on track and beat the Jets on the road. So with that, those are my locks of the week. Let me know what you guys thought about my picks. Are there picks that you agree with, that you disagree with? If you have different locks of the week, let me know. And as always, if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section. And if you enjoyed, give the video a like, subscribe, and I will see you guys in future videos as always.